Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lurking for Legends, a live video cast where my awesome co-host, epic fantasy author Richard H. Stevens, and I speak with people from all walks of the publishing industry. Lurking for Legends is a live interactive broadcast, and we encourage viewers to chime in with questions for our guests or simply make comments on whatever you hear in the show. So tonight we have psychological suspense and thriller author Eva Lesko Natiello. Welcome, Eva. How are you?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. How are you guys doing?
Great.
I'm doing fine, yes.
We've been looking forward to having you. You just had a launch recently, just last month, I think.
Yes, I just launched my second psychological suspense, a book called Following You. And I'll show you a cover. I just love the cover. Let me just,
There you go.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah. It's this butterfly wing on top of this other. It's kind of an interesting story, actually, about how that cover came to be, which is a crazy process. You know what it's like when you get involved with, designing the cover and working with the cover designer. And so it has to do, obviously, with one of the themes of the book. And I'll just show it to you again. You can see why am I missing? Okay, there you go. So here's the wing. And then on the background, it looks like these tiny, can you see there?
That's better, yeah.
Yeah, you can see these feathers, like millions of feathers. But what that actually is a butterfly wing under a microscope. Oh, wow. So it's the same exact wing, only looking at it differently. And that's one of the themes of the book is the way you look at something changes the way you see it, obviously. And that has to do with some of the characters because the book is told from three perspectives, and all three people are strangers to one another, and they make really hasty kind of knee-jerk reactions to one another. They don't know each other, and so they immediately judge one another. And of course, all three of them are completely wrong. And I'm not giving anything away, but you don't find out what they should have known about each other until the end. And the butterfly does play an important role also in the book. But I loved the fact that here are two very disparate looking things, but yet it is the same exact thing, looking at them differently.
That is really cool. So was it your idea, like, to do that? Did you say to your designer, this is what I want? Or did you guys kind of work together to think of something like that?
Well, I had this idea in my mind that background, that feathery looking thing, I wanted the words following you to emerge from the background, almost like they were hovering. They came out of nowhere, right? And because this is a stalking book, there's a stalking that goes on, and then the person who's stalked goes missing. So I wanted this kind of lurking, something appears out of the background, right? So we did that, and we got those letters to kind of emerge from the background. Yeah. But then I was like, you know what, something is missing. I don't know. I didn't know what it was. And of course, I knew that the background was a butterfly wing under a microscope, that very textured, feathery looking thing. So I thought, I wonder how that would look superimposed. So yeah, I did ask for the designer to try overlaying the wing. And it's kind of transparent. It adds a pop of color. And then it was it. Like the minute she did that, it was it. It just seemed like that's what it was missing,
Nice.
Turned out really good.
It's always nice when the cover jumps out at you and you like it.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome, Amber. She says, I love hearing the story behind book covers. So do I. I think that's so fascinating.
I do too. It reminds me of, like, remember when VH1 years and years ago would talk about the story behind songs, where behind the music or something. Wasn't that show called Behind the Music? I used to love that. Learning what was going on, what was the process, what was the direction, what were they going for? I love that stuff.
I totally agree.
So you got the ideas for your book covers. Where do the ideas for your actual books come from? Is just something that just pop in your head, or is this something that mulls around in your mind for a long time and then you want to get it out?
Well, I was thinking about that recently because somebody had asked me if I read this thriller, and I couldn't read it because I am a wuss. I get so scared. I get so scared so easily. I have terrible nightmares. I won't sleep for days if something scares me, like a book or a movie or something like that. So it's kind of funny. And somebody did ask me, how do you write a thriller and especially something that's sort of heart racing and dark, because they're dark. This book is dark. And my first book, The Memory Box, is definitely dark. And I think it comes first from my own fears. So something that I'm scared about, because I think when the character encounters the thing that scares me, I'm able to put my head into her head or his head. And it's really easier then to come up with like how panicked, for instance, The Memory Box, my very first book, is about a woman who Googles her name and discovers a past, her own past, and details of her past that she's completely unaware of and does not remember, very personal things that happened to her. And that book came about twofold. One, there was a New York Times news story that I read about people Googling themselves. And in the story, a young teenager Googled his name and discovered he was a missing person. And I thought, whoa.
That's wild.
Yeah, is that the wildest thing? Like something so personal, right? This is so personal about this kid. He has no clue. When he was 2, he was taken from Canada to LA or somewhere in California and raised there for 15 years. Unbeknownst to him, he was taken. And so he was on a missing persons list in Canada for all those years. So I started thinking about, can you imagine discovering something about your past you don't remember? And I've always had issues with my memory. I have the worst memory. I'm always scared that I don't remember things from my childhood, or I don't remember. It's not short term, it's long term. So that was easy for me to get into. I just made the protagonist a young mom of 2 young children living in a town that was very much like mine. She goes ahead and Googles her name because all the moms in town are Googling each other and finding out dirt and then gossiping about it. She's like, holy crap, what are they going to find out about me? So she Googles herself first, and she's like, phew, she volunteered at the library and she helped with the cafeteria day or whatever it was. And she was so relieved. And then days later, she's thinking, she's really bummed out that that's all she found about herself. How uninteresting. And she thinks, let me Google my maiden name and see what that brings up. Nobody in this town knows my maiden name. She Googles her maiden name and is stunned by the stuff she uncovers. And it goes dark fast, at that point. Mm-hmm. So that was a combination of reading something in the news and then building on that with my own fears. Now, this is kind of funny. One of the inciting events of this book is the main character, Shay, who is the host of a shopping network, much like QVC. She has a stalker, and the stalker is discovered, okay? The stalker is apprehended. She's so happy. She decides, I've got to start living my best life. I've got to get back out there. It's New Year's Eve. She decides she's going to go to a party. She hears about a party from a colleague, and they're all meeting at this house. It happens in Southern California. And she decides to drive by herself, and she's going to follow a colleague. They were both working, and she's following a colleague's car. And he's driving a little silver car. Well, this event happened to me years ago. I was driving and I was following a friend's car back to his house. I didn't know how to get to his house from this restaurant we were at. It was a little silver car, and I'm driving and following his car, and there's bad weather and detours, and there was a pole that was down, and he went through the light. I got caught at the light. I was like, holy crap, I've got to, why do I keep saying that? I have to, catch up with him. And we're driving for like 20 minutes, and I knew his house was only like 10 minutes away. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, after the detour, I must have started to follow the wrong car. And where are we going? At that point, I had no idea what town we were in, where we were going. And then I thought, what happens when we get to where this car is going? If I'm still following him, where is that going to be? And at that moment, when I realized I was following the wrong little silver car, I knew that is a great opening scene for a thriller. And so then I just back engineered, where does she end up? She doesn't end up. So back to Shay Wilmot, that's what happens to her. She's driving her behind her colleague, loses him, thinks it's his car, ends up on a street. She suspects something's odd about, this is not the way people explained this party house to her, and etc. And she goes walking right into the house because it was an open house party. And sure enough, she's in the wrong place, and things go south from there pretty fast.
I love that concept because it is scary. Like whenever you follow a car and just losing them, period, is already like, oh, I'm in an area I don't know. But then when you add on top of that, potentially following the wrong car, like, immediately as soon as you say that, I'm like, oh, that's a little bit freaky. Where could you end up? It's a great point.
And of course, her nav is not working, I should point out.
Of course, yeah.
Otherwise, it couldn't happen.
Yeah.
So I thought it was funny when you mentioned that you like writing these things, but these things scare you and you can't sleep at night. I'm the same way. I write epic fantasy, so there's swords and people getting maimed and killed and everything else. If I like watching epic fantasy on TV and movies, but if I know someone's going to get their head taken off, I will close my eyes, look away. I won't watch it. It just makes me cringe. I don't mind writing about it, but I do not want to watch it. So. And Anita Stewart says she's like that too, a chicken about watching or reading horror, but no problem writing it. So I think a lot of us are like that.
That's so funny. I think it's because we control the action, we control the characters,
Yeah.
we know we can anticipate what's going to happen. And part of when you're reading a book or watching a movie and it's a horror, for instance, you can't anticipate. And that's where the tension comes from, right? Something's about to happen and it's scary as heck. And so that's good. That's comforting to know that there are other people that are, scared of their own genre, like I am.
Yeah, definitely. And with, horror for sure, of course, like I could write horror, but I cannot watch it anymore. I used to watch it and I had nightmares for years after a while, and I was like, maybe I should stop, but it's different writing it. As you said, you're the one controlling the environment. I like the way you said that. And, putting in those things and engineering them is so totally different from having no idea what's coming. So when you write suspense, when you write thrillers, first of all, do you plot it or pants it? And how do you make sure that the things in it are going to surprise the reader? I mean, so many of us have read so many stories already. How do you sort of make sure it's going to come out the way you want it that way?
Yeah. Well, I pants it for a good long way. I would say I pants it for about at least half of the first draft, probably more. I just let it come at me, and I just write and let almost the plot and the characters take over, see where they're going. And then by about 2/3 of the way through, I outline. Because at that point, I know what's happening. I know where it's going to probably end, or I have a rough idea of where it's going to end. And then I will outline. Now, this book was really, it kicked my butt because it's told from 3 perspectives, and deciding who was going to drop the bombs, so to speak, who was going to disclose the thrilling gotcha moments or the those twists was very challenging. So often I would try out each one of those POV characters as the person who was going to disclose the twist to see where the most impact was. With my first book, there was one protagonist, and she was the point of view character, was told in first person present. And so that was really fun. Actually, everything was in her head. But what I loved about that was she had to be shocked too, right? So when you're writing in first person present, how do you shock the protagonist when we're in her head and we see everything she sees and we know everything she knows? So I had to come up with some devices where she would learn things. The computer was one of them, and Google was one of them, because when she Googled her name, that's where she found out things from her past that she didn't remember. And so I called the book The Memory Box, and to me, there were 3 actual memory boxes that I was referring to. And one of them was Google. One of them was the computer. I mean, if you think about it, that is a memory box, right? It holds the memory of everything, figuratively and literally. And the other one was her own psyche, her own memory. That was another memory box, which was unreliable, of course, because she didn't know these things from her past. So that was an unreliable memory box. And then the third was, there was a physical box in the story that the character came upon at one point, and some of the things she found in there were really devastating. And that's a really interesting scene, and it holds a lot of twists in it. So and that, I guess, happens after that first draft. A lot of writing for me happens after the first draft. I'm not really writing in the first draft. I'm understanding the story. I'm understanding the characters. And then with Following You, going back and deciding, which of the 3 characters were going to create the suspense, and then who was going to, in whose chapter would the twist happen to get the maximum punch in the stomach. Sorry, folks.
No, that's fantastic. And it's great to hear how you go about that, and that it is not so easy. I think it's like a great supportive thing to hear for other authors. It doesn't just like come like so easily. And I wanted to ask, I know The Memory Box came out, I think it was in like 2014, something like that. And I know that you are also a speaker. So this next book came out in 2021, and there's a good gap in there. Is it because you were planning this next book, or is it because you were speaking a lot and then you came up with the next book and, started writing it?
Yeah, good question. So when I launched the first book, I self-published my first book, and I really tried my best to learn as much as I could about self-publishing. And I'm a marketer by trade. So for many, many years, I headed up a communications department in the cosmetics industry, actually. And I worked for several cosmetics brands. So most of the time I'm thinking with my marketing head too, like, and certainly through Following You, when I was writing this book, I was thinking of the marketing the whole way through. But when I finished writing The Memory Box, I could not believe, first of all, I tried to traditionally publish that book, which didn't work. I couldn't get an agent. I couldn't get a publishing deal, 82 rejections. I think I tried for 3 years to get an agent and a publishing deal. It didn't happen. So I really thought the book was never going to be published, because I thought, well, I'm new at this, but they all are agreeing on the fact that they're not going to help me out. They're all agreeing that the book is probably horrible, so maybe I should just put it away. And I was pretty upset about that, because I thought it was a good book. And I later discovered a book in my genre. So Gone Girl was published shortly after that. Maybe it was 2015. Oh no, Gone Girl was published before mine. And I didn't realize that I should go and self-publish this book until I read that. And I said, oh my gosh, all these readers, there were millions. Remember how long it was on New York Times bestseller list. I'm like, what are they going to read next? I need to publish the memory box, because I knew they were my readers. You know, it was the same subgenre, and it had so many parallels. I knew I had to put on my big girl panties, learn how to self-publish, do it really professionally, and get it out there. Well, within 2 months of being published, it was the number one book on Amazon, on Kindle. And I was blown away. I was like, holy cow, I can't believe this. How did it get to be the number one book? You know, what about all these agents that thought it was terrible and blah, blah, blah. So then I realized, if I put some marketing behind this, oh, and then of course I got all these agent offers, of course, right? You know, that's what happens, because I took the guesswork out at that point. You know, it was selling really, really well. And actually to this day, so it's almost 7 years that it's been out, it sells every single day, that book, which is so incredible to me. But I really thought I could probably come up with a marketing plan, that I could sell enough books to hit a list. And I really thought I had a shot with the memory box. And that's what I did. So I did the marketing for that book, and then started consulting other authors. And so I started a consultation business on how to self-publish in a really professional way and how to market your book. And a lot of my clients are actually traditionally published, who don't see a lot of marketing coming from their publisher. So I help a lot of them too. And I dedicated some time to trying to get the sales up like crazy. And then I got really lucky. It did actually hit the New York Times and USA Today bestseller lists. So I was involved with, I guess, other projects for a while, although I was still writing Following You. But the thing with Following You is it went through many iterations. It's even this book that came out a couple of weeks ago is very different than it was like a year ago. I mean, it changed a lot. I changed one of the characters considerably. The world has changed since I finished the book, which was years ago. And because of that, I needed to go back in and do some edits and reflect the changes. So it was all of those things, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be as long this time. I'm almost finished with my next book. So that's
good news.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So you're on the New York Times best-selling list and the USA Today best-selling list. I'm sure there's a bunch of authors here that are tuned into Lurking for Legends who love to know the secret of how do you get there.
Selling a lot of books in 1 week. I think I sold. So I only hit the New York Times list one week. I did hit the USA Today several weeks, but yeah, selling a lot of books. I mean, there is no silver bullet. I mean, people will get in touch with me and they'll ask, you know, what's the secret? There's no secret. It's a multi-layered strategy. And that's even true now when I'm marketing Following You now. I mean, I'm not doing it with the intentions of selling 23,000 books in 1 week, although that would be nice, just to, you know, have a healthy sales rank and get some reviews. But there are a lot of plates you have to spin in the air. You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint, you know, to keep a book selling like the memory box selling to this day, every single day that book sells. I mean, I'm really proud of that. But I think that's because I dedicated at the beginning a lot of time to the marketing and trying a lot of different things. But it is multi-tiered. And there are things you can do that I always say to authors. If you're an introvert, there are things you can do as an introvert. There are things you can do if you don't mind doing Instagram lives and doing some, you know, appearances and things like that. So there's a lot of things you can do. And I think it's a fabulous time to be an authorpreneur, which is what a lot of indies call themselves, you know, because we're small business owners and we're just trying to sell our product. Like, if you had an ice cream store in town, you set up your storefront, you set up your window, you have great signage. It's a lot of the marketing principles that I live by in marketing my books, I learned in the cosmetics industry. I do a lot of things that I did back in my days with Clinique and Estee Lauder and Origins.
Cool. We have one of our viewers here, and I know there's so many different ways that we go about it, depending on your genre and everything else. But if you had to pick one thing to tell a new author, what would be the number one marketing tip for them to get them going?
Well, if you're an indie, maybe this goes for a debut author too, across the board. And somebody came to my workshop. I had a workshop a few days ago, actually, for the Montclair Literary Festival. And an author said to me, I'm thinking of writing under a pseudonym. What do you think about that? And I have a very strong reaction to that. And I swear it's going to lead to answer your question. Okay. I'm just digressing a little bit. And it was her first book. And I said, well, unless you're like another client of mine who is a dentist and she has a big practice and she writes erotica, she does not want to write under her dentist name. She doesn't want her dentist practice to know she's an erotica writer. I get that, okay? Unless you're her, when you debut, you are really leaning on your community of people when you get out of the gate for that first book, your colleagues, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your community. I certainly, in my community, I swear they were an integral part of my success. They really got behind me. And I do say to authors, if you can't be a rock star in your community, it's really hard to be a rock star anywhere else. Start with your grassroots, start in your community. And so what does that mean? That's one of the things I did with the memory box. Now, the memory box is a genre that's very commercial, psychological thrillers. Millions of people read that genre. If you're writing about the mating habits of earthworms in South America, you've got another issue on your hands. Yeah, it's going to be harder to get on the New York Times bestseller list, okay? It's hard to move those books. But if you're writing in a commercial, if you have got a commercial idea or a commercial book or a genre that has a lot of readers, maybe it's a book club book. That was one of the things that really propelled my book. And I got into a circuit of book clubs pretty quickly. I offered to speak at anybody's book club that chose my book. I most certainly would tell any author, put book club questions in the back of your book. So in the back of my book, I have book club questions. Because what does somebody think of when they're getting through your book and they're at the very end and they see book club questions? First thing they think is, oh, this must be a book club book. Like, even if they had never thought it was a book club book, now they think it is, right? The power of suggestion. And if you can speak at a book club, I love doing them. And with the memory box, I attended over 200 book clubs that read my book. What happens is now I don't have a sales team, right? I'm an indie. You guys, I don't know if you have sales teams, but we need all the help we can get, right? We don't have a sales team. We don't have a PR team. We don't have a marketing team. Guess what happens when you get book clubs to read your book and you've spoken to their group and you've told them about your journey? They love to hear that. How did the idea for the book come up? And what were you doing before? And they particularly love the story of not being able to get the agent, all that rejection, and then finally being able to make a success of it. They tell everybody. They love book club people love to talk about books, and they tell the next person, and you're taking a photo of yourself with this group and you're putting it on social. And then somebody sees somebody in the group and says, I know her. How did she get that author at her group? I'm going to get that author at my group. And then they become your sales team.
Nice. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Salary even.
Yeah, I would not have thought of that actually. But it's such a smart idea and it makes so much sense once you say it.
So
definitely.
is there a book club for Earthworm? Or am I going to have to shelf that book?
You really are, Richard. Sorry.
Okay. So one of our viewers says, I so love a good thriller and will be ordering your books tonight and reading all the coming weekend. I'm sure. That's awesome.
Is that Wanda? Well, Wanda, if you have a book club and you read either one of my books at your book club, you must get in touch with me and I would love to join you. And oh, speaking of that, this was really funny. The very first book club I ever did was not even in my own town. I don't know how this, an author in Portland, Oregon. So I live in New Jersey, and a reader in Portland, Oregon chose my book, The Memory Box, for her book club. It was only out for like a month, so I don't know how that happened, but she got in touch with me on Goodreads. Actually, she sent me a note and she said, I am freaking out. The book club is at my house in 3 days. I have no book club questions. Can you help me? So the first thing I had to laugh about was it was pretty obvious she did not get to the end of the book because that's where they were. But I immediately got back to her because I think she was my first like fan mail. That was my first fan mail. It was so exciting, right? And I said, I have a great idea. What if I attend your book club? And she's like, what, are you crazy? Are you kidding? I said, well, don't tell anybody, any of your friends. Just set up your laptop in your kitchen, on your kitchen island, and say, oh, somebody wanted to come tonight, but she couldn't make it. She's out of town. So she's going to just be here via, I think we were doing like FaceTime or something, or Skype. This was years ago. And so they're all standing around her kitchen island. They're drinking wine and eating cheese and crackers. And then she puts on the computer and it's me. And she introduces me and she's like, here's Eva Natiello. She just happened to write the memory box, and they all flipped out. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. That was my first book club. So it was really, really fun.
That is so cool. That really is. And I know you mentioned Goodreads there. And I think that you do say, because I've gone to a couple of your workshops, I believe you do say that Goodreads is a good place to focus some of your marketing time. Do you have any suggestions as to how to, like, find people who are reading your book, or how to get attention to your book page? Anything on Goodreads that would be helpful to other authors?
Sure. Well, one thing I say is make sure your Goodreads page and all of your retail pages don't look like tumbleweeds or blowing through. Make sure it's robust. There is interesting stuff to read about you, your book, your life. So make sure you've got a fabulous description for your book. On Goodreads, they actually allow you to sync it to your blog. So if you're a blogger, I don't mean go out and start blogging. If you already have a blog, you can sync your Goodreads page to your blog. And every time you write a new post, it automatically goes to your Goodreads page, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. They have something called Ask the Author, which is something you can click on or click off, where readers can actually ask you questions about your book. And you can choose to answer them or not, but I would definitely do that. There's another thing. Oh, you can post videos. I have videos on mine, conversations that I've done about the book, or a short reading, photos of book clubs. Again, power of suggestion, right? If you have photos of you, all over the world doing these book clubs, people get it in their head. Wow, maybe she'll come to mine, or maybe I should read this for my book club. The other thing, this is really cool. On Goodreads, readers create quizzes for books. Did you guys know that?
Mm-hmm.
So fans, like, they love a book, they create a quiz, and then anybody can take it. I saw that. I just am crazy about stuff like that. So I created a quiz for Memory Box. I haven't created one yet for Following You. And so you create it and you upload it to your Goodreads page, and anybody can take the quiz. And it's really fun. There's some, funny answers. It's a multiple choice quiz. So my only point is, don't put nothing there. Use your real estate. If you have real estate, use it. I am always surprised, especially on Amazon. They have something called Author Central, where if you click on an author's name, when you go to a book, let's say you went to the Following You page and you see written by Eva Lesko Natiello, you can click on my name and it takes you to another page with a lot of information, like a bio, like videos, photos, a place for reviews. I always put all of my social handles so they can reach out to me, my website address, everything. I use all of the real estate. This is your store. You know, we're going back to, we're authorpreneurs, right? It's like selling ice cream. You have a store, you want to really make it gorgeous. You want to, you know, have signage, and or if you have a clothing store, you want people to come in to try on, right? And the equivalent of that on Amazon is look inside and read the first couple of pages. That's like the trying on the dress at the dress store. But there are some books from big time authors, from big time publishers, that have no author central page. Nothing. It's shocking to me. That's free real estate, you know? So those are just some things that I would really recommend. And that doesn't take an extrovert to do, you know? This is not marketing where, oh my gosh, I don't like to market because I'm selling my book. This is stuff that you need to do if you're trying to get seen and read and trying to sell books.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, you don't want to, from what you're saying, it's kind of like, to sum it up, it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. Like, here's my Goodreads page and I'm just never going to bother with it again, which is something that I think I did for years before I realized I could be doing a lot more with it. So that's really good advice.
The other thing that you could be doing is, every Goodreads author needs to be a Goodreads reader. You know, add books to your shelf, put the books up that you're reading, you know, leave reviews of books or ratings of books, because every time you do it, everyone who follows you sees what you're doing. It gets put in their feed, right? So it's like free advertising for your author name, for your author books. Like, if your name goes in front of, I don't know how many followers you have on Goodreads, but if you're on there once a week just updating, you know, what book you read, that's free advertising for your name. It gets your brand seen a lot, you know.
That's good advice.
Yeah, really good point.
So I understand you teach writing workshops as well, and I was on your website and I was listening to the video that you have on there, and you refer to something as a masterclass, and I'm not exactly sure what a masterclass is. I'm sure it has something to do with teaching the writing genre as a whole, but so what are these all about, and how can people find out more about them?
The master classes, so I created 2 master classes, one called Self-Publish Like a Pro, and it's a deep dive into everything you need to know to be an indie author and to publish your own books. And the other one is Find Your Readers Book Marketing Workshop, and that is a master class also, and that is a really deep dive, and that I discussed. That one's 5 hours long, and there's a ton of stuff that I discuss. Like I was saying to you, Richard, before, there is not one thing you can do. There's a million things you can do. And I think you're never going to do them all. But if you try different things, and you'll increase your chances of finding your reader. So those are really immersive workshops. I haven't done them since COVID started, but I do speak at a lot of conferences and a lot of book conferences, writing festivals. And right now, actually, I'm speaking at the Women in Publishing Summit, which is going on this week, which is an amazing conference. And it just started yesterday, but I think you can still sign up and get all of the archived workshops. There's 70 speakers. The last time I spoke at it, my workshop was the most attended event out of 70 events. So that was thrilling. And I got the invite back. And so my workshop is later this week. And but like I said, they're all archived. So you can go and still register, and you haven't really missed anything, you know, because it's all virtual, of course. But I am, along with that, busy writing. Thank goodness. I love, I don't really love starting writing a new book because I'm still pining and I miss the characters from my old book, but it feels really good to get back and be super creative and be immersed in the life, the life of new characters. And so that's pretty cool. Following You has been out, I guess, a month today.
Good timing.
Still trying to get the word out about Following You and the crazy characters in the story who are all strangers, but their lives collide when the celebrity goes missing. And they do make these snap judgments about each other that because they're panicked and they're scared. And I guess one of the overarching themes of the book is about how we judge people in a moment of panic or in a moment of fear, or sometimes not even in a moment of panic. When you see someone, how do you judge them? What's your knee-jerk reaction? And how with some people we judge without believing, and others we believe without judgment. So that's one of the overarching themes. When I was learning about how we, where you judge people based on things like the way they look, the way they appear, or are they popular or not? So one of my characters is very popular and very successful. So obviously people judge her right off the bat in a certain way that they are completely wrong about, And then there's someone else who is a young girl, and she is having trouble. She's making a lot of bad decisions, and people judge her very wrong also. But when I was doing some research on this, I discovered something that even height is something we judge. And people that are super tall or tall, we judge them in a way that we, like if we see someone in an instant, we think something about them because they're tall. We think they're smart, and we think they're together and confident just because they have more inches than I do, which is so interesting how our psyche works, and how we've been kind of socialized to judge certain things. So a lot of that is in the book as well. And lots of, of course, just a lot of bad decisions by all three characters, which makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good point. We don't even always think about how we judge others. It's just like a part of us that we don't, even when we don't want to, you just do, so that research must have been super interesting. And as one of our last questions, I just want to make sure we fit in here that you had the memory box cover redone recently, and it was like a total redo. It's not like they're similar, they're utterly different. So can you tell us a little bit about your decision-making process there, why you did it, and what made you choose the new cover?
Yes. So I think it was time. It felt like time. I loved that first cover. The cover is, I don't have the book here with me, but it's like a cardboard box that has a hole in it, and the title is in the middle. And I loved that. But what I thought was, and this was a marketing decision, I really believed with psychological thrillers in the last year, and even going into the summer and the rest of this year, as I see books that are coming out, there is a trend that's happening with psych thrillers where even dark thrillers were having bright colors. So the new cover is very bright. Also, it has a face on it, which I never wanted to do because Caroline, the protagonist of the memory box, I wanted everyone to form their own image of her in their mind. And I wanted her to be someone we all have as a friend. I wanted to, so only you know what a friend looks like to you, right, Christie? And also Richard and myself. So I did not want a face. But the more I thought about it, I think I was losing some market share on the readers of psychological thrillers. And I think the old cover was not serving me anymore, in that I was missing the mark on a certain reader group that would have been much more attracted to this. So it has bright colors. It does have a face. That's Caroline, the protagonist. Looks a little bit mysterious. It has, you know, a lot of arresting color. And then the memory box, the title, the word memory is slipping into the word box. So I thought that was really cool too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a tough decision, like when you like your cover, and especially you had such a good release with it. You know, it must have been really hard to change it. It's hard to let go of those things that were A, successful, and B, you loved.
Totally. And you don't know what the future is going to be and if you're making the right decision. The cover always scares me, like, because you could go a million ways with the cover, right? And you just don't know if you're going the right way.
Mm.
And you got to pick one. You know, you can't have, it's not like a wardrobe of covers.
I wish.
Although that's a pretty interesting idea.
Yeah.
I like that.
I might try that. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a really neat idea to change them once a month and just keep flipping through them.
That'd be
Might
interesting.
be costly though. So on behalf of Christie and myself, we'd like to thank you, Eva, for coming on and sharing your works with us. And when you just released a book a month ago, do you have another one in the works now, or?
I do. I have another one in the works. I'm really excited about it. And I'm hoping, my challenge to myself is that there will be a jaw-dropping twist every chapter.
Oh,
Ooh.
so do you have like a tentative date that's coming out, or is this just something that you're going to write? And then...
I don't have a tentative date. I'm not that far. I mean, I'm almost finished with the first draft, so I don't know. Once I finish the first draft, then maybe I can see the future a little bit more.
Okay. So just before we go, one last question. I want to ask, do you have a favorite thriller, author, or book?
Well, I'll just tell you of one I read recently that I really loved because it really screwed with my head, and I loved that. It manipulated the heck out of me, and it was Goodnight Beautiful by Amy Malloy. And it was so shocking because I was making these talk about, you know, how I was talking about a minute ago with Following You, how we make decisions based on just the way we've been socialized almost. Okay. We don't even think about it. And I was making decisions like that, not even knowing that I was making these decisions, and then finding out. And she did that, Amy Malloy, when she wrote this book, there are some stunners early in the book. And I thought, what a treat. It's like getting, you know, a box of Russell Stover chocolates, and every one of them is really a treat. And that's how I want to treat my chapters of this upcoming book. I want them to have something really shocking within, as much as I can, within each one. And that would be one heck of a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. I like the way you sum that up. That's good. So we wish you the best of luck going forward, and hopefully we'll see you back again on Lurking for Legends in the future when you maybe have a new book, when you launch your book, whatever. Feel free to reach out to us, and you can launch it here with us. And so thank you for coming, Eva.
Thank you. I would love that. Thank you so much.
And so next week we have Ken Schultz. He's a fantasy author, so that's right up my genre alley. So I will enjoy speaking with Ken Schultz. And until then, Christie and myself wish everybody a safe week. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.